Welcome to Leading by Example, upholding standards without compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Are you ready to be better within your world and become the standard bearer within your organization or wherever you are? Leaders, aspirants, every one of you, all of us influence our culture, the organization's culture, our workplace's culture through actions taken both inside and outside of the workplace. I founded Ontero Solutions upon integrity, customer satisfaction, and attention to detail, specifically executive coaching and leadership development. Join in for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. Leading by example starts now. This is the place where we tackle the real challenges that push our values, inspire change, and encourage us to lead by example, especially in a world that often forgets what truly matters. Do you ever wonder why our values sometimes seem compromised, whether in the workplace, politics, or even in our personal lives? Why do we see principles sacrificed for quick wins or convenience? These are the kinds of questions we're tackling on this show, Leading by Example, upholding standards without compromise. Throughout our show, we'll dig deep into the tough issues, offering insights, answers, and most importantly, solutions. Are you ready to explore how we can all lead by example? Let's get started. So this November, we're spotlighting and honoring the diverse leadership contributions of two exceptional leaders as we explore the rich landscape of military leadership in our special series titled Forged in Service, exploring the many faces of military leadership. I am particularly excited to welcome our special guest, Major General Richard Harrison, the Commanding General of the 32nd Army Air and Missile Defense Command. Not only has Major General Harrison had an extraordinary career spanning over 2 decades in the United States Army, but I've had the privilege of following his leadership journey closely. His dedication to service, strategic thinking, and commitment to developing future leaders have always stood out to me. I know today's conversation will be both inspiring and informative. So let me tell you a little bit more about General Harrison. We are honored to welcome him as the CG of the 32nd Army Air and Missile Defense Command. A native of Sunbury, North Carolina, Major General Harrison began his military career in 1994 as an air defense artillery officer after commissioning through Army ROTC at Elizabeth City State University. Over his distinguished career, he has held numerous leadership positions, including Commandant of the United States Army Air Defense Artillery School and Commander of the 69th Air Defense Artillery Brigade, as well as serving in high-level strategic roles such as Executive Officer to the Commanding General of United States Forces Korea. Major General Harrison's service has been recognized with numerous awards, including the Defense Superior Service Medal and the Bronze Star Medal. He holds advanced degrees from Georgetown University and the United States Army War College, demonstrating his commitment to both strategic thinking and leadership development. We are privileged to have him with us today to share his insights on leadership and military service. With such a distinguished career and a wealth of leadership experience, it's clear that General Harrison has made an extraordinary impact on the military and the communities he served. But as with any great leader, there's always a deeper story behind what drives them. So let's start by going back to the beginning. General Harrison, can you tell us what initially motivated you to pursue a career in the military and how that journey has shaped your leadership style over the years?
Absolutely. Hey, that's a great question, Dr. Vaughn. I appreciate that. And you go over my bio, just made me tired listening to that.
You busy.
Man, it's been a long journey. But thanks for asking that question. I grew up in a family of all girls and no brothers. So the Army for me was to be a part of a team. I didn't play sports in high school. I wasn't that guy who was out there catching footballs or ducking basketballs. So the Army was a team for me, and it was an opportunity for me to be a part of a team and to really, see the brotherhood and sisterhood of military service. I started in ROTC there in college, and really, I had no desires of being in the Army until I got to college. And when the when the instructor for ROTC approached me as I was signing up for freshman classes, and he said, "Hey, look, what about ROTC? You can try it out and see if you like it. If not, you can drop it, and we can almost guarantee you an A, which will help you GPA." And as a freshman, you want a good GPA because you know you're going to slip in some classes. So I joined ROTC and I fell in love with it, Vaughn. I really enjoyed the camaraderie. I really enjoyed the competition. I really enjoyed being a part of that team, and that uniform really stuck out to me. And that's kind of why I joined the Army and really joined this team and been this team for a long time. I see it as a team and they're part of a family, a brotherhood, sisterhood.
Wonderful. So, how would you describe your personal leadership style and how has it evolved throughout your career?
Oh, wow. Great question. I'll use a acronym that I learned as a captain in the Army. My battalion commander said, "I want everyone in the battalion, Rich, to have a PhD." So I'm scratching my head going, "Hey, sir, how are we going to get the entire battalion to have a PhD?" And he said, "No, not the funny hat and tassel PhD." He said, "I want them to have pride, hustle, and desire."
I love
And I
it.
was like, wow. So really that acronym and those words I learned as a captain really, early in my career have stuck with me. And I've lived my Army career and I've led under those three simple words, taking pride in everything I do. First of all, taking pride in my uniform. I'm a Harrison. And to me, no one is better than a Harrison. I think that, I live that, I believe that. So I get up every morning to go hard and be the best Harrison I can be. Other side of my uniform says U.S. Army. I represent the U.S. Army in everything I do. I take pride in that, being a part of a bigger team, being a part of the best fighting force on the face of the earth. So I take pride in being in the Army. Next, I believe in hustling. I believe in getting after what I have to do. I'd rather you pull me back than kick me in the behind.
Right.
So taking the initiative is something that I believe in. So that hustle, being about my business, is what drives me every day. Getting after, the boss gives me 10 tasks, I'm gonna do all 10 plus one more because I'm about hustling. And then the desire, I have a desire, one, to make my parents proud. I can't pay them back for giving me life, but I can certainly make them proud. That's my desire. And same with my family, is the desire to wake up every morning and be an example for them and young people that look like me, and even those who don't look like me, but a desire to see that, to show them that, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. So I live by that. And I pretty much maintained that from captain up to now, that leadership philosophy. And then last thing I'll say is treating others with dignity and respect. I grew up in the country and we respected each other no matter what our social economic background was. It's about respecting people, respecting your elders. So I go into a situation where I'm no better than anyone else in my formation, be it a private or major or colonel. I'm just older. They can get to where I'm at if they apply themselves. So I go into that respecting them for who they are as a person, as a soldier, and not, belittling them or looking down on them because they don't share my rank or they haven't grown up in my background. So those things I've kept constant throughout my career. Last thing I'll say, I've had to morph my leadership style as new soldiers come into the Army. I've been in the Army 30 years. So you can imagine the change I've seen in terms of the generation of soldiers that come in the Army. So I've had to adapt my style to them. I learned that it's easier for me to adapt as one person than trying to adapt 100 people to my style. So I've learned to go to their neck of the woods. I've learned to go to things that connect with them in a better way. For example, back in you and I day in the Army, we were told what to do and we did it. We didn't ask why. Now I have to be comfortable answering the question, "Sir, why are we doing this? For what purpose are we doing this?" So I had to change to go, okay, let me take a pause and explain to them, this is the why behind this mission here. So that's how I've changed throughout my career.
Wow, that's so I don't know, you gave me goosebumps. I miss being in uniform. It's that type of spirit that I miss, being, a service member. I love
Understood.
being a civilian, don't get me wrong, but I truly miss that. So to
Understood.
our listeners, as you hear about the evolution of Major General Harrison's leadership style, think about how your own approach to leadership has changed over time. What experiences have shaped the way that you lead? So, General Harrison, your leadership journey has undoubtedly been shaped by a commitment to service and a deep understanding of what it means to lead in complex environments. But as we look to the future, leadership itself continues to evolve. What are your thoughts on how leadership development is changing within the military, especially in such a rapidly shifting world?
Great question. Again, I spent a year at TRADOC as the TRADOC G3 or operations officer, and we delve into training, how the Army is training for the future war that we
Mm-hmm.
find ourselves in. So the Army is looking at how do we put those doctrinal manuals that we used to have, physical manuals, how do we put them in podcasts as an example? How do we
Mm-hmm.
put them on audiobooks as an example? How do we use avatars that are in a vignette scenario to teach young leaders how to lead training meetings? Back in the day, you read a manual on how to do a training meeting. Now there's a no kidding video scenario that will walk you through how to run a company battery troop level training meeting. So the Army
Wow.
has adapted and really evolved into using media formats that will connect with our young soldiers, our junior officers, junior NCOs, and meet them where they are, digital natives. We've also looked at how do we take all the data that we get off the battlefield, fuse that into an AI or machine learning
Mm-hmm.
tool, and give the commander the best information that he or she can make the best decision quickest. It's about really beating the enemy, the adversary, to that decision making. So the Army's invested a lot of information and a lot of time in training young leaders how to make better decisions faster to stay ahead of the pace of this next battlefield that we'll find ourselves on.
Right. So, with that, how have leadership styles, particularly your own, adapted in response to technological advancements and the changing nature of warfare?
Great question. It's getting comfortable with it. Just today, as we watch these situation unfold in Israel, we watched it on a system that is called Maven, a civilian
Mm-hmm.
system that you can tie in and see all the things that are happening real time on the battlefield on this digital map. Back in our day, we had the old maps that hung up on the wall. We would track the
Mm-hmm.
enemy and track the friendly. Now it's all digital. So really, we have to be comfortable going into that digital world because I'm used to having a map and being able to move things around. Now seeing it on the screen, it helps us now, older leaders, visualize the battlefield more comprehensively, helps younger leaders be able to articulate what the plan is and be able to understand the plan because they can see it in a holistic picture on a
Mm-hmm.
digital map where they're used to seeing things on digital media. So we had to adapt as older officers, older leaders in the Army to go into those digital media platforms and having so much information out there and finding a way. And I think for us, it's incumbent upon leaders now to describe to our young soldiers what we want. What's the desired effect? We tell them what the desired effect is and let them go do what they
Okay.
need to do in order to achieve that desired effect. So I'm more or less more descriptive and less prescriptive on how I give guidance now to my formation than I was back in the day. Back in the day, it was more prescriptive. Do this, this, and this. Now I describe the effects I want, describe the output I want, and allow them their freedom of maneuver to go in there and work it to give me what I asked for. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. And I think that's an excellent leadership model because that's, what better way to develop a leader than to let them figure it out, give them the
Absolutely.
parameters to figure it out.
Absolutely. Early, I said my field grade years, major years, the term mission command came about, my major
Mm-hmm.
time frame in the Army. And I didn't know what mission command really was when it first came out. But really, mission command is really giving that young subordinate left and right limits, describing the end state and letting him or her develop the course of action to get us to that end state. And like you just said, it's developing young leaders to think for themselves, to look at the situation, giving the boss's parameters. I can do this. And then the confidence they have. We built
Mm-hmm.
confidence in young leaders that I didn't have at that level as a captain or lieutenant. I didn't have the confidence that young leaders have now because we've empowered them by saying, this is the end state, left and right limit. Now go do everything within that is your purview to do it. So I think we're a much better force now from what we grew up in and the tools we have today.
Wow. So leadership development is clearly crucial in shaping the future of the military, especially as the world rapidly evolves. But equally important is how the Army prepares its leaders for the responsibilities they will face. Let's now turn to the specific training programs and structures within the Army. General Harrison, can you speak to the Army's approach to leadership development, particularly through programs like Command and General Staff College?
Absolutely. The Army does a tremendous job at training officers and non-commissioned officers for the jobs they're going to go into. For example, as a young officer, you go to the basic officer leadership course, BOLIC. You learn how
Mm-hmm.
to be a lieutenant. You learn how to operate in the Army, what a weapon system that you're assigned to. You learn your craft as a young officer. You go out to the Army, you practice what you learn. You get experience out doing those things you learned back at the BOLIC course. Then you go back to the school again to the captain's career course. You learn about
Mm-hmm.
commanding units and working at a bigger scale. You go out and you practice that. So the
Mhm.
Army, then you go back to the school again, Command General Staff College, you learn about working on staff. So the Army does a great job of preparing you and educating you along the way. And we have a mirror type of education system for our enlisted soldiers. You know, they
Mhm.
go to several gates of professional development as well too. So I think the Army does a tremendous job of really preparing officers and NCOs for the job they're going to go into next, and then developing resource pools for them to reach back into when they're in the job. So things you learn in Captain's Career Course, you can reach back into that pool of information, be it Blackboard or be it wherever that information is. If you need it, you can pull it forward and use it in practicality when you're in that job. Same thing with Command General Staff College. The things that you do in Command General Staff College, those things are hung on a portal. You can reach back and grab example op orders. You can reach back and grab, other resources and put them into practice in your next job. The other thing it does, it creates networks. Now, by the
Mhm.
Army bringing you together to school in different times of your career, you develop a network where you develop that bond while you're in a school environment. So you go back out to the operational force, you have someone you can call. So I was in school with you at CGSC. We went to different locations, Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty now or Fort Campbell. I can call you and go, hey, look, remember that course we had on how to write op orders? What do you remember from that? So I have a resource now. Or we go to the same installation and I go, hey, you have a range today. You and I were in class together. We were friends. Can I get some guys on your range? So relationships and the teamwork that's built at those courses really go out and really benefit us when we go back out to the field.
I love it. I love it. Again, I miss it. Make me want to go back and try to get in and squeeze into my uniform.
I can get you back in. I know a guy.
Look, I want me height and weight, and I'm probably slow on the run.
It's all good. We'll waive all that. We pay you for your brain now. I'm told now I'm paid for my brain, not my body.
That's so mean.
Hey, I accept it. Hey, I know it is. No one likes a fat general.
General Harrison, what roles do non-commissioned officers play in the Army's leadership structure, and how do they contribute to mentoring junior soldiers and fostering resilience? And not just junior soldiers, but officers.
No, great question. I tell you, non-commissioned officers have a pivotal role in our formations. I mean, they do a lot for, one, training our soldiers. That's our primary role, is to train our soldiers. But two, they are the advisors to our commanders and our young leaders, explaining to them how things work and how things fit together, and giving that young officer who has a less amount of years in time and service than he does, but help bring that officer up to where that NCO is. They serve in very critical roles in our formation. Again, I mentioned earlier, they were our primary trainers, but they're advisors to our commanders. But they also go out there and they're in charge of maintaining discipline and standards in our formations. I think the role of the NCO is critical. That's why we're the best fighting force on the face of the earth, because they have professional non-commissioned officer corps. They do a tremendous job of making sure units are disciplined, they have standards, and they're trained well. And then they also advise commanders on how to do the business of command. And they're that first point, that touch point with soldiers too. We at this level, as a two-star general and a commanding general, my touch point with soldiers is very limited. I if I go down to a unit, it's a big deal. People paint rocks, people get out flags, and a lot of stuff goes on when I go down there. But a non-commissioned officer, exactly, pull weeds up, pick up cigarette butts. But a non-commissioned officer can go down there, and not to say it's not a lot of pomp and circumstance, but it's the fact that they can go down there and really impact the soldier immediately on a particular task, more so than a senior officer can do. So we count on them for that. For me, my command sergeant major, he is my sounding board. He's my advisor on things. I don't sign anything unless he's seen it. I don't approve anything unless he's seen it. I trust his opinion. I trust his guidance, because again, we're in this together. We are a command team. I see that that the two of us are a commander's organization, and I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. I don't use the word I use we in my conversations, in my emails. I say, Sergeant Major and I appreciate you. We understand what you're going through. I want people to know that the two of us are inseparable. We're a team in this. So I want to model the behavior that I want my subordinate command teams to emulate. So the fact that my sergeant major and I are close, I expect them to be close with their senior enlisted advisor too. So I think we as a responsibility as leaders is to model that behavior we want our subordinates to emulate. So me being close to him and having no scene between us, I expect the same between them and their senior non-commissioned officer, their command sergeant major, or their senior enlisted advisor, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and that's an excellent example from modeling the behavior that you want to see from your subordinates. So while formal training programs like the Command and General Staff College play a vital role in preparing leaders, there are certain leadership traits that transcend formal instruction, such as adaptability, integrity, and decisiveness. These traits are not only cultivated within the military, but are essential in leadership roles everywhere. How does the Army instill these universal leadership traits in its leaders, and how do you see them playing out in both military and civilian life?
Great question. I reflect back to my time in TRADOC and as the commandant of the Air Defense Artillery School, when the primary focus then was to steward the profession. It was to really hone in and reinforce that we're professionals and we do professional things. This is not a job that we do, it's a profession, being in
Mm-hmm.
military service. So the Army has really focused on that as a profession now versus a job. The Army's always had the Army values. We've always focused on and always, imbued the Army values in all of our formations and everything that we do. But the Army had to double down on that because just a period of, we thought, a period of counterinsurgency, a period of constant conflict,
Mm-hmm.
may have lost some of those things. So the Army had to go back and reinforce those things back into the profession. But they're critical for leadership in the Army and just as well as outside in the civilian sector. Those same principles, the Army values, the principles that you highlighted there of integrity, adaptability, they're just as important as in the civilian world. My wife and I, have had conversations that mirror, each other in terms of the challenges we're having at work. People are
Mm-hmm.
people, no matter if the
Right.
education sector where she's in or the military where I'm in. People are people, and the same skill sets and same type of leadership attributes or lack thereof. I've found
Mm-hmm.
situations where my wife has described her boss, her leaders, actions and described their efforts, and I've seen that they're not leaders according to what the Army says.
Right.
They're managers.
Right.
They
Exactly.
manage versus lead, and I think there's a big difference between
It
leading
is.
and managing, and the Army has really infused the values of leadership into its officers and NCOs and less of the managing. And I think that's what sometimes civilian sector gets blurred in terms of their leader in
Mm-hmm.
terms of title, but their actions scream manager. So it takes a special, in my opinion, we had this debate. I wrote a paper years ago about, are leaders born or are they made?
Mm-hmm.
We wrestled with that, and I still wrestle with that even today. Me personally, I think we all have a leadership gene in us instinctively. How we cultivate that, how we nurture that gene will develop into a strong leader or just a person that can manage or just a follower. If you don't do anything to that leadership gene, you just, in my opinion, you're going to be a follower. You're not going to be a leader. But if you nurture that gene through different resources you put inside you, different things that you take in, ingest in terms of information, in terms of styles, I think it grows your leadership. And that's like a muscle. I think leadership's a muscle. The more you work that leadership muscle, the stronger it's going to be. Now, I've been working my muscle for, a lot of years. I got 5 sisters. I've been leading them around for 50 some years. I've been in the Army 30 years. So what I'm trying to say is that you have to work at it. And if you don't work at it, that leadership, those traits basically atrophy, and they basically, you either die off or you become more of a manager and less of a leader. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll pause there to see if that scratched the itch on your question.
It did. It did. Now, earlier you talked about your style shifting from being, earlier on in your career from being, more prescriptive, So there has been a shift from more autocratic leadership to more inclusive leadership approaches. How have you seen this shift play out in the Army, and what benefits has it brought?
That's a great question. I've seen it play out in terms of bringing in diversity of thought, diversity of ideas. I've seen that, for example, I'll use myself. I'm an old person.
Yeah,
Surprise.
yeah.
I was a brigade commander at Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos, and
Mhm.
we were about to deploy. And I was in front of the formation. I made the comment, hey, I can't wait to get down range so I can get my calendar and start marking up the days until we come back home. And the soldier raised his hand. I was like, what you got, little buddy? Hey, sir, there's an app for that. Like, there's an app for that? Yeah, it's called the Countdown app. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, sir, it'll count down to the minute that we return. You don't need
Oh,
to go
wow.
mark the date off the calendar because you'll forget sometime. So when I share that story to say that young soldiers advising his brigade commander, there's no need to buy a physical calendar and mark a date off. You can use an app. That's inclusive. That's bringing in, allowing people to be comfortable, young people, bringing up ideas to their to their bosses, and being treated with respect and dignity, and people accepting hey, I accept it. I still use that app today. For example, when you can screenshot the app too. So when I was deployed last time, which was like October of last year, I was on my way back home a week out. I would screenshot that countdown app. My wife faces the background of that app. Okay. I put her face at the background, and it would count down the days till I got back. And to the minute that I knew I was going to land, because I flew a commercial flight, I screenshotted a week out and sent it to her. Again, setting conditions, using technology that again, I'm now a digital native because I had to go to their world. Right. So I'm bringing my wife along into this digital world by sending her screenshots of this app that a young soldier told me back in 2016. So in 2016, he told me about this app. I'm still using it today in 2024 because, again, inclusive leadership style brings in ideas and options from other people and welcoming that and not shunning away, not just shutting that kid down. Now he feels comfortable. Now, I know he's not a private now, but I bet he's a sergeant somewhere, and he's probably giving ideas confidently to his chain of command because he saw that Colonel Harrison back then listened to him and he followed his guidance. So the Army's done a lot to bring inclusivity into say that 100 times, but bring that into our formations, and it's shown to be really good for us in terms of young people nowadays. This generation, they want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're a part of the solution. And we embrace that and we bring those ideas on. It makes the mission so much better too. We find ways to do things faster now because a young person has an idea that we haven't thought about because we're very mature. I'll say it like that. In age. So that to me that's a benefit of the Army. It's the strength of the Army now of being more inclusive. I'll end with that. See if that answered the question.
I love that. I always felt, when I was in uniform, even now as a civilian, that everybody, regardless of your rank, your title, everybody's contribution is valuable and equal.
I agree 100%, 100%.
It's amazing that, and then, especially now that you're a 2-star, the fact that you still hold that true and practice it, it's amazing. It is amazing.
Thank you. I had to.
Yeah. So while traits like adaptability, integrity, and decisiveness are essential, another crucial element in developing great leaders is mentorship. Mentorship helps to not only reinforce these traits, but also guide personal and professional growth throughout a leader's journey. So, General Harrison, can you share how mentorship has played a role in your own career and the importance it holds in the Army's leadership development?
Absolutely. Man, I've got tremendous mentors in my career. I started out like most young officers. I don't want to ride someone's coattail. That saying you say, I want to make it on my own. Well, that's foolish and that's short-sighted thinking. Let me just clear that up right now. I was not thinking when I said I don't want to mentor. You need mentors, no matter what career field, be it military, civilian sector, people who have gone the way that you intend to go, who can share with you ideas, techniques, things that they got wrong, so you don't make the same mistakes. And it's vitally important in the military because, again, one, we in terms of society, we're a small piece of society. We're 1% of society, but in order for us to make it through those gates for leadership, there's someone who obviously gone before us, and that information they have is valuable for us to not make those same mistakes and allow us to go even further. My mentor's goal was for me to go further than him. He was like, I'm not trying to get you to where I'm at. I'm trying to get you beyond where I'm at.
That was awesome.
So it's been vital in my career. I would tell you early on, I wasn't mentoring back. I was being selfish and self-serving. My mentor asked me one day in the Pentagon, Lieutenant General retired Bob Farrell said, hey, okay, I'm mentoring you. I'm pouring into you. Who are you mentoring? And I was like, I was stunned. I was like, I didn't have anybody.
Did it all for myself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, and he said, I can't believe you're doing this. How selfish are you that you're taking all the things I'm pouring into you and keeping it for yourself and not mentoring someone behind you? I'm bringing you up. Who are you bringing up? So that opened my eyes as a captain that my responsibility is to bring up the next generation of officers, regardless of what color they are, regardless of where they come from. If anyone, wants to listen to me, I'm willing to talk to them. And I think it's important I learned something along the way. There's mentors and there's coaches. Let me
Right.
tell you the difference here. That coach is someone that tells you to do something and you do it, like an NBA coach or NFL coach. Block this guy or shoot that ball. You don't do those things the coach says. He puts you on the bench and says, okay, you sit there until you figure out how to do what I tell you to do. A mentor is different. A mentor will give you guidance, ideas, things to think about, but not be prescriptive in terms of telling you do this. And wherever you decide, a mentor is going to be there with you based on whatever decision you make. They'll support whatever decision you make. I've grown up knowing that I've got to have great mentors, but also got to have great coaches. Coaches help you win championships. I've
Right.
had great coaches in my career that took me to championship, baby. I'm a two-star because of great coaching.
Right.
I'm like Coach K out there. I've had Coach K coach me, not the real Coach K, but the Army version of Coach K. But I also had great mentors that I can say, hey, sir, I think I want to get out of the Army. And they say, hey, calm down. You're deployed right now. You're not thinking straight. Hang in there. So as a major, I want to get out of the Army. As a lieutenant, I want to get out of the Army. At every rank, I want to get out of the Army. But a mentor said, hey, hang in there. There's something bigger for you. And I'm so glad I
Wow.
did. So glad I
Wow.
did. So, but mentors and coaches, we need both of them, but you got to know which one's which, and you got to really understand that you need both of them to be successful. I've had great coaches and tremendous, outstanding mentors in my career. So that's how I look at it in terms of mentorship. It's vital to success of the Army. No matter what rank you're in, no matter if you're listed an officer, you need mentors. You need people to help guide you through, because the Army is challenging. There's pitfalls there. There's things that you can find yourself, doing, either knowingly or unwittingly. You can find yourself throwing your career away if you aren't careful. And mentors
Right.
are there to help guard against that. And also they're there to make phone calls. I mean, I've made phone calls for people to get them their assignments taken care of. It's just, you're really giving back to those, paying it back, that networking that you benefit from. Now
Right.
you should help someone else benefit from that same networking, that same mentorship. So I'll pause there and see if that scratches the itch.
It does. It does. Now, with that, what advice would you give to someone who's looking for a mentor?
Oh, great question. I've had that question before. I've learned that mentor and mentee have to have a mutual relationship and a mutual benefit, I'll say. For example, it's like the stock market. If there's a stock out there that's like not doing well, I'm not going to invest in that stock. I'm not going to lose my money. I almost see it the same way, because if I see an officer, he said, "Oh, I should be my mentor," but that officer is not striving to be the very best he or she can be.
Right.
They're that stock that's stagnant. I'm not going to invest in that stock, because I'm
Right.
going to lose my money. I'm going to lose my time when it comes to, mentor. So I find myself looking for mentors or mentees, I should say, that have one potential, two that I can connect with and see the value in them, and then they have an understanding that one, my time is valuable, and again, my
Absolutely.
advice is just that advice. It's not prescriptive in terms of do this, this, and this. It's here's a way to do it. Here's some things to consider. Here's some things to research. Come back to me and let's have a conversation. And people who do that and obedient to that, I see them as great mentees, and then I can reciprocate and be a better mentor to them. But tell me the whole story. If I'm mentoring you and you're telling me half the story,
Right.
then it breaks the relationship. It breaks the bond, because I'm advising you on half the information.
Right.
Not telling me you're in an investigation
Right.
and I'm trying to move you along to an assignment. That's important information to know.
Right. Right.
So it's a mutual relationship between a mentor and mentee that I think young officers and young NCOs have to understand that, it's vitally important, but you gotta put something into it. You got to show value. You got to show I want to invest in you because you have that potential. If you don't have it, I'm not investing.
Right. So what about but again, what about, say, for that junior officer or junior, soldier? If they say, hey, I don't have a mentor, what are the qualities, what are the criteria that I should be, looking out for in my next mentor? How do I find this person?
Great question. I think if that person aligns with your values and your character, and there's somewhere you want to go, I think that's a great person to to approach and ask, and to be your mentor. For example, your goal is to be a command sergeant major. You find a command sergeant major that's aligned with your values, aligned with your character, and you go to that person and you talk to them and you lay out, and you got to bring something to the table too. I think
Right.
the key to that younger person is to bring something to the table. Okay, if you show me your career development timeline, you show me your professional development timeline, I'm more apt to, say, okay, yeah, I'll mentor you. I see progress here. I see you can
You
get
got a
there.
plan. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you walk up to me, hey, sir, can you be my mentor?
Like,
I'm
what
a
you got?
mechanical paint. Yeah. Who are you? What are you bringing to the table? No. So I think the junior officer has to do some homework and prepare, or junior NCO do some homework, prepare his or herself for that conversation with that future mentor or potential mentor to show, hey, look, I've got a plan. I just need somebody that's going to help me navigate the waters of the Army, so I can make it to my objective or my potential. So I advise junior officers come with a plan versus just the old random questions. Hey, sir, keep me my mentor. No. I've said that a couple of times. No, I don't even know you from a can of paint. I mean, because I'm a two-star, I don't just bring people on, to my
Right.
team.
Right. Say, I ain't taking no strap hangers.
Exactly, yeah. Because you think about that. You bring the mentor down when you have this bag. People understand too is that your character needs to be aligned with the mentor's character, and it
Yes.
needs to be positive. Because as soon as you deviate from that, the mentor is going to, one, cut you off,
Mm-hmm.
or two, burn with you.
Right.
Because guilt by association. Let's just be honest.
Right.
We still have that perception in America that guilt by association. So I'm not going to bring you on my team if you have questionable character, because then the assumption is the entire team, all of General Harrison's mentors had that same questionable character because I brought this one bad apple into my mentor group. So that needs to
Right.
be evaluated too by the young officers, that if you don't have strong character, then don't try to join my group, because you're not gonna take my apple bunch by bringing in something that's that's counterproductive to what I'm trying to build as a reputation for myself and as for the people that I mentor.
Right. I like that you said that. I read, it's a Bible scripture. It says, bad company corrupts good character.
There you go. I like it. Yep. Well said. Better said than what I said. But you're right. You said Bob obviously gonna say it better than me. But you're exactly right though. That we can't corrupt that good character by putting a bad apple in that
Right.
bunch. So no,
So
very good.
yeah, so General Harrison, mentorship plays a critical role in shaping future leaders, but continuous learning is also key to staying ahead in a fast-changing world. Let's shift to talk about professional development. What books or resources have had the greatest influence on your own growth as a leader?
I appreciate that. Hey, books started out initially, but as I got older, I started reading pages of books over and over again because I fall asleep or I lose focus. So I shifted to the newer generation of
Okay.
using podcasts. I use master's classes. So
Okay.
more of a audio means. When I had a commute, when I was in Fort Eustis as the TRADOC G3 or operations officer, I had to drive an hour and 15 minutes to work.
Mm.
So really that hour and 15 minutes, I use that for my professional development, my PD time. So listening to podcasts, listening to master's class. Another avenue I want to go down is Harvard Business Review. The
Okay.
chairman,
Yep.
Joint Chief of Staff, the chairman of Joint Chief of Staff, General Brown, said that he reads the Harvard Business Review, and it gives a non-biased approach on several things. It's a great news source, a great resource. So my next project is to pick up the subscription to Harvard Business Review and start looking at that and kind of reading that and getting into that type of media. But really, for me, it's been podcasts. Now, the last book I physical book I read, hard copy book I read was Male versus Man by Deontay Whitfield. He played Vanessa's boyfriend on Bill Cosby. He
Yeah.
was yeah.
Robert. He was Robert.
Robert, exactly. He was Robert. His book Man versus Male was a great book I needed that book at the pivotal time in my career. That book
Wow.
taught me about really how to be a better father. It taught me that I need to have a different relationship with each one of my kids.
Mm.
They needed to connect with me in a different way. And also I
Right.
need a relationship with my wife. That book, I read that book when I was at a period of, one, I was geographically separated from my wife. I was in Korea. And I'm sorry, it wasn't, I was at the War College up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania for that year.
Hmm.
And really, it was just a tough time being away from my family. And I
Yeah.
needed something that's going to, reading the war books are great. Reading about Grant, all those things are very important. Don't get me wrong. They're Colin Powell books, amazing. I love them. But I needed something that was going to help me be a better father and a better husband. And that book really honed that in for me and really brought it perspective of my responsibility as a husband and a father for my kids, and being a man versus just being a male. There's a difference,
Right.
and
It's a huge difference.
DeAndre Whitfield talks about that in that book. about really what manhood is all about and true manhood. So that book was very critical to me. The master's class from George W. Bush was amazing. It was a series of 7 or 8 different lessons. I learned so much about our former president I just didn't
Wow.
know from the media. That he was a brilliant man. First of all, the media didn't paint him that way, but he was a brilliant man in the way that he conducted business, and the media painted a picture of him during Katrina response that really wasn't what he intended it to be. He wanted to get on the ground there, but they told him that his appearance on the ground would pull resources away because he was going to land. But the media painted a picture that he didn't care about us. So just thinking, just that one example from that master's class taught me a lot about that leader. Hillary Clinton had a great master's class as well too. Bill Clinton has a master's class I'm listening to right now. Coach K has a master's class that was amazing. His master's class taught me how to lead a large team, how to bring together a large organization to get them on one accord. I used his master's class lesson when I first took command of this 7,500 person command spread across 5 different installations. I had to come together and go, how do I come up with shared values for a command this size? So the day before I took command, the outgoing command allowed me to have time with the leaders of this command. We sat down and came up with our shared values. I didn't bring my PhD into this, that's for me.
Right.
I let the organization come up with shared values. We came up with the acronym PRIDE. Professionalism, respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence in everything that we do. That's what the team came up with. And so Coach K talks about that, how he goes into his, each season he brings in the team there at Duke when he was coaching. They came up with their shared values. So really using those audio books and using those podcasts, those master's class, that has helped me really grow as a leader and given me tools that much faster than some of the previous war books and books that, the Chief of Staff Army reading list, and great resources. But right now I'm using tools that young people can relate to. For example, when I was teaching when I was a combat of the Air Defense School, I go down to the classrooms and have a brown bag lunch with the lieutenants and the captains, and I'd use a TED Talk. I'd use General McChrystal's TED Talk, listen, learn, then lead. So a brown bag lunch as a forward leader is tough because soldiers will start asking you questions as soon as you sit down. So you don't get to eat. Your mouth is full of food and they're asking you questions. So what I would do, I would use that TED Talk. It's about 15 to 12 minutes long. The TED Talk plays, I'm eating. And so when the TED Talk stops, then I can answer the questions or talk about, what General McChrystal in this case was talking about in that particular TED Talk. Using things that connects with young people, like that TED Talk, was a great resource to use. And I found that's a better way, one, to feed my mind as I'm doing other things like driving, to get me spun up on, and then also just to look at leadership through a different lens outside of a military lens, like George Bush, like Hillary Clinton, like now listening to President Clinton, and Coach K, bringing those other leaders in their career fields, taking that and applying it to my military career.
Awesome. So in your view, how essential is continuous learning and growth for leaders, both in the military and beyond?
Oh, it is.
I know
vital.
On the outside, I don't see a whole lot of it. So speak on it.
In the military, it is vital. I mean, you have to continue to be a lifelong learner. In order to be, like I mentioned earlier in my conversation, leadership's a muscle. I believe in that. You have to work that muscle. Working it is feeding it with information. It's like putting protein in that muscle to make it stronger. Bringing in knowledge through books, through podcasts or whatever. It's feeding that leadership muscle and making it a stronger capability. And then just having conversations about leadership, having dialogue. This, in conversation with you, Vaughn, has really opened my eyes to really what it's about, leading from a military perspective and leading from a civilian perspective. What you're doing out there in the civilian world, tremendous, but I bet your military experience has a lot to do with your success.
Man. Yes.
So there's hope for me when I retire that the things I'm learning here, I'm feeding to my leadership muscles, will help me when I do decide to take off the uniform and join your side of the camera.
Yes.
And perhaps one day have my own radio show. So
yes.
But hopefully I answered your question there. It's vitally important that lifelong learning is it's essential to really, being the best you can be. And that's how we should wake up every morning, being the best person that we can be. Whatever leadership role you're in, for me, being the best CG I can be, I got to start feeding that leadership muscle through whatever thing that soaks in. Right now, digital media is soaking in because I can't read a book without falling asleep. reading the same page twice.
And you know what? I like your analogy about the giving the protein to the muscle. There's another saying like you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you have a leader who's
Yes.
not pouring into themselves, how are you going to lead your people when you ain't got nothing to give?
Absolutely. Another great analogy. Another great
Hmm.
analogy. Yeah, I like that.
So while continuous learning and professional development are key to maintaining strong leadership, it all begins with recruiting the right talent and ensuring we retain skilled individuals in the force. As the Army looks to the future, attracting and keeping top talent remains a critical focus. General Harrison, what are your thoughts on the current state of recruitment for both officers and non-commissioned officers, and what strategies are being used to retain these valuable leaders?
Great question, man. I spent time at TRADOC, as you well know, 3 years, two as a commandant, bringing in officers primarily, and then 1 year at TRADOC G3, looking at the recruiting challenge as we were facing. I will tell you, the Army had to revamp how it did, marketing and recruiting young people of today. COVID era, gave young people ideas that they could do businesses, and
Hmm.
military service was not something they wanted to do. The old brick and mortar recruiting station was not getting people walking in there like it was back in the day. So
Right.
going out and finding digital media, finding ways to connect. Commercials on TV proven not to be resourceful anymore because young folks don't watch TV.
Right.
So getting on the platform that they're on, getting on Instagram, getting on
Hmm.
the other LinkedIn, those type of things, that's proven to be a much better way for us to recruit young people. Also, sending old people out like me was not a good way to recruit. I'm that kid's dad, or some cases I hope not granddad, but I'm an older person. My experiences are so far gone, so far disconnected from that young kid. He or she doesn't see themselves in me just yet. I'm 30 years into this thing, and I got two
Right.
stars on my chest. They can't see that now, but sending out our young soldiers, brand new from basic training AIT, back to their hometown and go, hey, tell those folks back home your experiences in the Army and how it's changed you and made you a better person. The Army's going back to doing that, beefing up the
Ambassadors.
hometown, yeah, ambassadors, hometown recruiting program. We've
Hmm.
invested in that. While at TRADOC, the Army approved this great program called a Future Soldier Prep Course, FSPC. It's ran at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where we bring in young people who may not have a high GT score, or they may be overweight, maybe not making our body fat percent. We bring them into the Army on a conditional contract, and we put them to this future soldier prep course. And we, on the academic side, we teach them how to understand the ASVAB better test taking skills, better math skills, things that kids didn't quite learn back in
Right.
school. We reinforce those fundamentals so they can take the ASVAB and get a better score and get a better MOS, perhaps get a bonus. We
Hmm.
also, on the other side, the fitness side, people who, for whatever reasons, through they grew up on fast food, they eat a lot of things that are unhealthy, they can't maintain their weight. We take them through a diet, a sleep, and a full holistic fitness program, and we help them lose weight, and then they
That's
make the
amazing.
standard, and we put them in the Army. So that program has proved to be vital to getting people to meet our standards, not lowering our standards, but bringing them up to our standards and putting them into the Army. I'm not sure if you're aware that I helped my DoorDasher, come into the Army, and it was just an amazing opportunity to help a young person achieve her dream of being, an American soldier. That day I met her was the same day the secretary approved the Future Soldier Prep course. So she
Wow.
thought she had no way of getting in the Army because she could not pass the ASVAB. She was Filipino native, so English is a second language, so she had trouble passing the ASVAB. Well, that day that I met her was the day the secretary approved that program. So she came to me teary-eyed that, hey, you are breaking my heart. You're wearing a uniform that I want to wear one
Oh,
day. And I said, hey, guess what? You have an opportunity just today. The secretary approved this great program. I'm going to sign you up for it, and I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to be there with you the entire way. So she made it into the Army, and I went to her graduation basic training. And man, you talk about like a daughter to me.
yes.
She's still my Army daughter. We still stay in contact because now she can serve. She was given an opportunity. She wanted to serve, but she couldn't get over some academic hurdles, and she put on a little weight too. But the Army
Hmm.
has taught her now that one, you can achieve this. The Army has a way of helping you. This young lady now wants to go to OCS or Green to
I love
Gold
it.
and become an officer. And she wants to go to airborne school like her dad.
Yes.
So that's just an example of how it takes really really a personal connection with someone who wants to get into the Army, and really you taking that and really investing in that. I saw her as an investment. She's that one soldier that I can say that I helped get into the Army and achieve her dream. And God willing, the creek don't rise, I'm going to fly to promote her to specialist
I love it.
in Fort Riley, Kansas here in the first part of November.
She can have all kind of credit with her unit.
Exactly. She got a 2-star coming for her to specialist.
Look, when does that happen?
Exactly. But the Army had to relook and bringing back the motto, a slogan of "Be all you can be." You and I grew up under that. Right. Be all you can be. Bringing that back helped rebrand the Army to where I think it's going to be in a better place. Recruiting numbers are going up, so we've seen some bounce in our recruiting numbers, both on the officer and enlisted side. And I think showing that value proposition that the Army can help you meet your objectives. Service doesn't have to be 30 years like me or 20 plus years like you. It can be 5 years. It can be 10 years. Whatever you desire. Allow the Army to help you. The Army has now changed that. Hey, let us help you achieve your goals. Young people want to know, how can I achieve my goals? I want to own a small business one day. Well, great. The Army can help you by, one, you get a great bonus, you get a good MOS. That's a nest egg for your business.
Yes.
2, you get health care for however amount of time you're in the Army. You ain't got to pay for health care. We're gonna if you're a junior enlisted soldier, we're gonna give you a place to stay. If not, we give you BAs to pay for your house. We're gonna help you get to your ultimate goal, owning your own business. Just give us 5, 10, whatever years you can sign up on a contract, and let us allow you to get to those dreams. So we've rebranded that whole marketing strategy of going after this. Hey, stay in the Army for 30 years or 20 years. To hey, let the Army help you achieve your goals, and in the hope that once we get them in formation, we can keep them. And we do a lot for retention. My command in particular is really doing well in retention, even with a high up tempo. We deploy a lot of soldiers constantly, but they still want to stay on the team. I contribute that to just great leadership. Leadership matters. You know that vibe. When you serve with a great leader, you'll run through a wall with that leader. If you empower that young soldier, make him feel like he's an important part of the team, they'll stay on the team. They'll want to stay on the team because you have invested in them and they see the benefits. And then just last thing I'll say on that one is showing that we're human. That 2-star generals can go down there and talk to you like a human being, and shake your hand, and call you, call you by your, by your last name and talk about your football team. We can connect with you in a personal way, just like that sergeant, just like that lieutenant, and because they don't want to be us unless we show them that they can be us and that we're human. If I want someone to be a 2-star general one day, I gotta show them, I gotta show them that 2 stars are approachable. 2 stars are someone that you can talk to. So I'll pause there. I know we run short on time. I can go on for hours about this topic.
I wish we could. Well, thank you, General Harrison, for sharing your time, wisdom, and experiences with us today. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us in on this important discussion on leadership. I hope you leave today feeling inspired to lead by example in your own communities and professions. But before we leave, I have this quote for you that I think General Harrison will appreciate. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. That's by Simon Sinek. All right. So this is Dr. Vaughn signing off. Until next time, keep aiming high and leading by example.
Thank Dr. Vaughn.
You have been listening to Leading by Example, upholding standards without compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, bringing you inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. As we go through and learn these lessons, I would ask you to be thinking about those lessons that you bring that you could share for potential, hey, you may even want to be a guest on our show. So think about those lessons as we continue to explore inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. For more information, please visit www.onterosolutions.com. That's ENTERO.